Morning.
Hi. What's up?
You study?
I'm gonna have a class. It's soon to come on
It's
Zoom.
okay. It's okay. Do your class.
I thought you.
Do your class. I don't know. I just gonna wait for my mom and I'm gonna leave. Okay?
So just gonna be here for a few minutes?
Yes.
Okay. Nice to see you.
I just came to see you.
Oh.
Okay?
Right.
And I'm gonna go to work. And I bring this for you. Look, Mr. Bobby.
Oh. Oh, menorah. How nice. Thank you.
This for you blow in the window. This sticks
I
to
have to
the
go
window.
on the window. Oh.
Yes, in the glass window. Yeah. That's nice, right?
Next year, I put it up.
Yes.
All right. Very
You like
nice.
it?
Yes, very nice. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. I'll put it away as soon as I finish my class.
Okay.
The class is about to start.
Yes. I just came to see you for a second and I'm gonna because today I'm gonna work right here.
Oh, nearby.
Yeah, I'm gonna work right here in the way it's close to you, like 20 minutes.
Why doesn't this come on?
So it's gonna pass for Kovavi.
All right.
Is already starting?
It's starting. It's okay.
It's okay now.
That's my face there, but the face that the host hasn't come on yet. He's supposed to come on any minute.
Okay. Oh yeah, it's gonna come out any minute.
All right.
I just came to drop off your gifts and I'm leaving to go to work. Just to see you and hug you, okay?
How are you doing? How are you feeling?
I'm doing better.
You're feeling better?
Yeah. Sometimes it's dizzy, but still like I'm trying to eat it more.
You have to be careful if you're not feeling well.
I know.
Because if you get sick and you won't be able to work at all.
Yeah, I know.
And your mother has trouble with her car now. She has to.
Huh?
Did your mother tell you she has trouble with her car now?
Yeah, I have trouble with my car.
You have trouble with your
yes,
car also?
But I have to wait until Monday. Might have to wait because I gotta take to the dealership. I went to this dealership right here from your house, and the lady wanna charge me $750.
Oh, for what?
She said it's a pipe from I forgot the name is it's something the air is not passing through the engine. Oh. It's something I don't know what she called. I forgot. So if you want to charge $750, and I say no. So I try to go in the place that I got a car in Hollywood, Toyota Hollywood.
Yeah.
And then but there I cannot go. I just gotta wait until Monday. So I'm driving really careful. So the car did not overheat or something. Uh-huh. So but I want to make appointment.
If you have a car, you have problems.
I know. Always problems.
Have to drive slow and not drive fast.
Yeah, no, this is what I'm doing now. That's why I get out really early.
All right.
So I can come in here and go drive it slowly. So I get there.
All right. Very good.
So I see you later then.
All right. Be well.
And I'm glad that you're feeling better. Okay.
Okay. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
It's been several days since I saw you last.
I know.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye. I hope you like it.
Yeah, very nice. Thank
you. You like the candles too, right?
Oh, there's the candles?
Yeah.
Oh, the candles. Oh, yeah. Those are big candles. Huh?
Yes.
Very nice. All right, I'll use them next year.
Okay. Bye, Uncle Bobby.
Bye-bye.
And study well. Anything you can call me, okay?
Okay.
If I
had a question. I was going to wait. I was waiting to see you, but I'll see you next time.
Yes. If I can, I pass you later here. Okay.
All right.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Good morning, Zev. Who else is
Good morning, Rabbi Green.
Michael Brabin, are you on? Yeah. Okay. Good morning, Michael. Okay. Good gentlemen. If everyone can find a place to sit. All right. Okay, I'm going to start the learning sponsors. Year of learning, friends of Marcy Kurtz, in memory of her great niece, Leah Bracha, Isaac and Evelyn Blachor, in memory of his sister, Chaya Rachel Bas Isser, friends of Leonie Meiselman, Leah Sabra Bas Chanukzunda. 2 months of learning by the friends of Milton Meller in honor of his second bar mitzvah. A month of learning by Ron and Susan Podolsky in memory of his mother, Fredel Bas Shraga Feivel. Phyllis and Chaim Reese in memory of her father, Pinchas Ben Abraham. Rabbi Dr. Yankee and Malki Honig in memory of his sister, Chava Bas Harav Simcha Ben Yamin. His brother Tzvi Aaron Zeb Ben Harav Simcha Ben Yamin. His father, Harav Simcha Ben Yamin Ben Harav Yosef Yitzchak, and her mother, Sosia Bas Koinen. Be Pizer in memory of her sister, Rivka Bas Avram Michal Halevi. A week of learning by Michael and Judy Koretsky in memory of his brother, Avram Ben Gershon. And today is the 5th of January, Alan and Rosemary Katz in memory of his mother, Liba Bas Avraham. May Hashem is having Aliyah, Krank Raphael Velti Yeshir Hashem Atuya, L'chol B'nai Yisrael a good Ben Shtiyah. Okay, so is there anyone that needs a Daf Yomi calendar? I still have copies. Okay, I still have extra if anyone needs. All right. Okay. All right. Ayin Bet is today. Okay, so what do we do when we've now come to a point, says the Gemara, that we haven't been able to come up with an answer as to whether shtika is going to be considered like, gerushin is considered like shtika, or whether it's considered like kiyum, hakama. Okay, we still don't have an answer to that situation. Okay, all right. And that's where we left off really yesterday, okay? Because the Gemara concluded, Iyamar mar kishtika dami, matzi mefarla, ve'iyamar mar hakama dami, lo matzi mefarla. Okay, so we really didn't come to a conclusion, okay? Everybody's got a text that needs one, okay? Okay, so we're now on Ayin Amud Bet, a new Breita is going to attempt to give us an answer. Notice I said attempt. Okay, all right. So what happens? Tashmas is the Breita. Ematai amru meta baal nitrokna rishut laab. At what point says this Breita? Okay, do we say that when the husband dies, that there is a transfer of the power to revoke the vow of the woman, okay, totally to the husband, totally to the father, I mean, totally to the father. I took some medication this morning. That's my Bisman Shalosh Shama Haba'al. Maybe we're saying that this occurs when the husband, okay, has not heard the vow before his death. Okay? Notice, by the way, that the Gemara doesn't tell us that. We have to fit that in there. Okay? Oh, sheshama v'hefer, or that the husband heard the vow and he revoked it. Okay? And then he died. Oh, shema v'shatak, or that the husband heard the vow and he was silent. Okay? Maybe in all of these cases, we'll say that in this situation, then it's up to the father to complete the revocation. Umeit bo bayom, okay, and he died. All right, so what happens? Right? Oh, shema v'shata. Umeit bo bayom, and what happens? He heard, he was silent, and he died on that day, the husband. Okay? So what happens now? V'yamart gerushin kishtika damu, and if we're going to argue that the act of divorce is like being silent, and then we come back and raise the question, is shtika kahoda adamya? Is shtika really a kind of, let's call it for the moment, passive confirmation of the vow, okay? Litnei Nami, let us teach also in that particular section of the Mishnah, O Shama v'geresh, okay, that he did hear the vow and therefore he divorced her. Okay, that being the case, that would clearly then tell us what? That it was like a passive confirmation, and therefore he divorced her, and therefore that tells us that it is, okay, that's the situation. Okay, all right. So what happens? Umidelo tani hachi, says the Gemara. But since our Mishnah did not teach it that way, shmamina gerushin kahakamadamu. Okay, it would seem to imply then that the act of divorce, okay, as an act per se, is clearly a more explicit, I'm going to say, way of saying that he was confirming the vow. All right, all right, okay, and therefore now what happens? Okay, so we were still not sure if there's a confirmation there from regards to Gerushin. So the Gemara continues with a challenge. Ema Sefer. But I might say, look at the end of our Mishnah. What did it say there? Aval im shama v'kiyem, that if he heard the vow and was maintaining it, in other words, confirming it, O shama v'shatak umet bayom shela acharav, or that he heard the vow, he was silent, and he died the very next day without making a explicit revocation. Ein yachol lahafer. Our Mishnah said he is no longer able to make any revocation. V'i amart gerushin b'hakamadamu. But if then you're going to say that the act of divorce reflects a very explicit kind of confirmation of the vow, litnei v'im shama v'geresh. Again, let us teach then that the same thing, that it should say that he heard it and then he divorced her. Okay? In other words, clearly telling us then that that again act of divorce comes to indicate, okay, that while we thought it was implicit, now there's a act that follows up that makes it an explicit. Okay? And therefore that's why he's not able to revoke. Ella midelo katani hachi. But we're now saying that since even at the end of our Mishnah, that it didn't teach that words if he heard and divorced, hachi, shmamina, we have to learn from this what? Gerushin kishtika damu. Shmamina gerushin kishtika damu. Okay, that therefore the act of divorce, okay, yeah, okay, is like a silent, is only an implicit confirmation and not an explicit confirmation, which really now puts us in a problem, because the Reisha of the Mishnah seems to say one thing. The Sefer of the Mishnah seems to say the reverse. Okay? And that's what the Gemara is ultimately going to tell us. Ella, but rather, says the Mishnah, Meha. So if we can't come to a conclusion from that Braita, okay, because we've just shown that it would seem to be a conflict between the beginning and ends of the Mishnah, maybe we have to look for another source. Okay, that's what the Ella is cluing us in. Meha lekele mashma mina. So therefore, the Gemara tells us from this, in other words, from this Braita that we just cited at the top of the Amud, we cannot learn an answer to our question as to what Gerushin really implies. Right? Now, let's go on. Okay? I Reisha Dafka. if we're going to say that the beginning of the Mishnah, okay, talks about a situation where it's explicit, okay, right? Nasiv Sefer Mishum Reisha. If that's the case, if we're omitting the, okay, so I'm just trying to see what my note was. Omitting the divorce, okay, in regards to the Mishnah implies confirmation. Okay, so therefore what happens here? Are we saying then that the phrase is at the end of the Mishnah are simply there for stylistic purposes so that they parallel the beginning of the Mishnah, okay, by omitting the topic of the divorce, okay? That's what we're saying. Tashma, let's hear a far new bright. Nadra vehi arusa. She made a vow and then she became betrothed, engaged. Arusin, Kiddushin. Nadra vehi arusa. She was? Okay. I had a pshat that said she made the vow and then became. Venit garsha, and then she was divorced from the Arusin. Okay. Venit arsa bo bayom, and then she became betrothed, engaged, Erus once more, a second time, on the same day. Okay. Afilu me'ah, even were that to occur 100 times. Nevertheless, says this Braita, Aviha uba'alaha acharon mifirin nidareha. Her father and the, want to call it the last existing husband, the two of them together are responsible to revoke her vow. Shmamina, that's what we learned from this. Therefore, maybe we're going to say, Gerushin kishtika damu, that the gerushin, that the act of divorce is sort of more like a shtika, is more like a passive confirmation. The ika hakamadam, because were the act of divorce to be considered an explicit confirmation, mi matze mefer arus acharon nidre de okma arus rishon. Is it possible then that we might say that the last or existing husband is able to revoke something that was heard or aware of by the first arus, the first husband? Therefore, what are we dealing with? Bishalo shama arus harish rishon. It must have been a situation where the first husband did not hear the vow. De'i hachi, because if that's the case, mai area bo bayom. Why then did it tell us specifically that all of this occurred on the same day? Because that's the only time that you would need both to do the revocation. Okay? I feel
Like Green. It means it's as apparent that you do not have to hear the vow in order to confirm or revoke.
He's never saying that. Maybe that means that you don't have to hear the vow to revoke it. Let's see if the Gemara addresses that, Zev. Baruch Shekivanta. Let's see what the Gemara says. Okay? I'm just leaving it, Zev's question out there for the moment. Okay? But that would seem to be the case, right? If the later husband could revoke it, even though he didn't hear it, right? So he said, if that's the case, right? My area bobayom. Why then did it say that it had to be on that day? If that's the case, then any number of times afterwards, the latter, the last husband could revoke it if he wasn't the one, if he didn't hear it. Okay? Kishalo shama arus v'shama ha'av. Maybe it's a situation where the husband did not hear it, but the father did hear it. Debo bayom hu dematze mefer. Because why? Because it's on that day that they're both required to do the revocation. Okay. Aval mikan ve'elech.
The father or the husband is at the vow. So the father heard the vow on a Monday, and the husband didn't know about it until the following day.
Right, but then that doesn't work, right?
That doesn't work.
That doesn't work for the both of them to revoke it. Okay? In that time. Okay?
Even though.
Or well, we'll see. Okay, so maybe that's what the Gemara is trying to explore then. Because why? Because they need to revoke it, both of them, that same day. Aval mikan ve'elech, but from then onwards, lo matze meifar. Then they're not able to revoke it. Okay, because we're going to say, if the husband didn't hear it, the first husband, the latter husband, a later husband, cannot revoke it, even if the father heard it, okay, because he can only revoke half, right? Okay, so what happens? Says the Gemara to try to clarify. Girsha vehichzira bo bayom. No, now we're talking about a situation where the man divorced her, but he took her back the very same day. Okay? Eino yachol lahafer. He is not able to revoke it. Okay? And even in that situation, Shma mina, we would learn from this then, Gerushin kehakama damu, that therefore it would appear that we now have a tentative answer, that the act of divorce is more comparable to an explicit revocation, explicit confirmation.
How does that work? How could divorce be confirming?
Okay? Because in other words, he didn't like her vow. So what did he do? He divorced her. Okay? And therefore that implies that the vow was in force. Okay? Amre, however, we have another challenge. Okay? Let us say the following. Hacha b'nisua askina. Maybe we're only talking about a situation where we're dealing with a married woman. V'hainu ta'ama de'en yachol lahafer. And that's the reason that the not able to revoke it. Why? Mishum de'en habal mefer b'kodmin. Because the husband, the existing husband, cannot revoke earlier vows of a nisua, of a married woman. In other words, he can't revoke her when she wasn't in his domain, in a sense. She wasn't his wife.
She was originally an arusa to
Right.
him. Then he divorced her, and
Right.
then he remarried her. So
Right.
his remarrying her fully, he cannot.
Now she's a nisua and he can revoke those, but he can't revoke those once he divorced her when she was a nisua.
An heiress.
An arusa, right? Okay. Now,
Rabbi
Yes.
Green doesn't discuss whether, as an arusa, does one of the husbands have to hear the vow?
okay, that's a good question. We're left with no answer. As
No.
an arusa, does the husband or one of them have to hear the vow to be able to join with the father to revoke it?
Also, it seems from what the Mishnah was saying that if an earlier arusa had heard it, as long as one of the husbands has heard it, later husbands can revoke it.
Correct. Zev is saying as long as at least an earlier husband had heard it, the later husband who is taking his place,
Right.
in a sense, could revoke it along with the father.
That's what it seems to say.
That's what it seems to tell us. Okay, right. Right, because if it's divorce or married, it changes the status. Okay, now we get to a interesting, I like this new Mishnah. Okay, and Ahmed Bet. Okay, if we're saying that ideally a married man cannot revoke his wife's, only he can only revoke the vows made by his, I'm going to say, existing wife, and not revoke them on his own prior when she was his arusa, right? Because that could only be done by the two of them. Okay, so if that's the case, let's see if that situation is challenged by this new Mishnah. Okay, Matniten, our new Mishnah says as follows: Derech Talmidei Chachamim. It was going to say derech here is common practice, okay, of the sages, those who were familiar with the laws of Nedarim, etc. Ad shelo haita bito yotzeit me'etzlo. In other words, while she was still in Arusa, before her nisuin, and was still living in his household, and then still under his domain, okay, what would he, Omer la? He would say to his daughter, Kol nedarim shenadart betoch beiti harei hein mufarim. All vows that you have made while under my roof, so to speak, are, okay, revoked.
There's no time frame here? It could be at any time?
Good question, Bob. Okay, but let's assume she's in Arusa. Okay, let's limit it to that time period for the moment. Okay, now hold on a second. How can he say that if when she's in Arusa, we just got through learning that you need both the father and the husband to revoke it?
Moreover, it says beyond Shamo.
It's not
But
Christian,
he
yeah.
has, he's saying any that you made at any time.
Right.
Not that he heard about it.
Okay.
Like he hasn't heard about
So we've raised now at least two questions, right? Alan's point is valid, that it has said on the day, implying that it should be done only when it's heard,
But he hasn't even heard them.
and he hasn't heard it yet. And also the question of how can he say on his own all your vows when it has to be, basically the status of the Arusa has to be the two of them.
And where the father would do it before he gets
We'll see. V'chein habal, but wait a second, our Mishnah says, and likewise a husband. Ad shelo tikanes l'shuto, until she enters his domain, which implies she's what? Still in Arusa, which again raises that same question, don't you need the two of them? Omer la, he says to her, Kol nidarim shenadart, ad shelo tikansi l'shuti, harei hein mufarim. All the vows that you made until you came into my domain, they are revoked. So how can he claim that? I don't know. Let's see. Heshi, you might be right.
This other question.
Yeah, what, Alan?
Why, if he can do this, why would anybody divorce a woman coming into his thing because he doesn't like the darn that she made? He can simply be Mayfair.
Well, a good question. Let's see.
He doesn't like her anyway.
Okay. All right, let's go on. So what do you say? Harei hein mufarim, mishetikanes l'shuto eno yechol lahafer. Okay, once she enters his domain, he is not able to revoke them. In other words, the husband of a nisuah is unable to revoke vows prior to the nisuin. We've just said that. So how can he say again another problem regarding his step? So we had two kashas at least on the father and two kashas at least on the husband. Okay? All right. Now the Gemara's got to deal with all of those. Gemara. Bai Rami Bar Chami. He asks the following shaila. Baal, Mahu sheyafer below shmiyah. Sounds good. Hazev. Is it possible for a husband to revoke a vow without having heard it? That's really a question. Vishama Isha, a pasuk says, Vishama Isha dafka hu, olav dafka hu. That when our pasuk says that he hears the wife, does it mean dafka hu, that it's explicitly that he really heard it? Okay. Oh, lav dafka hu. Or is it not explicit? Is the pasuk to be explained? He's simply aware that she made the vow, that he did not have to explicitly hear it with his own ears. You know, somebody could have said, oh, one of the servants could have said, do you know what your wife just said? Okay, kind of thing. Amar Rava, he says as follows, Tashma. Listen to the following Braita to see if it explains. Derech Talmidei Chachamim, Ad Shelo Yetzat Bito Me'etzlo. Rav is citing our Mishnah, but he's citing a Braita that's almost similar to our Mishnah. Okay, and that's why I wanted to emphasize. All right, that the sages, okay, who were familiar with the halacha here, okay, before the young woman were to leave his domain, Omer says to her, Omer la, kol nidarim shenadart b'toch beiti harehein mufarim. And he says to her, all vows that you have made in my household, okay, are to be revoked. Well, hold on, Hesh. Vahalo shama, says the Gemara. But the Braita says, but he didn't hear them. How can he revoke any vows if he didn't hear them? Okay? So the Gemara's answer is, L'chi shama. It means when he does hear them, who demefer. That's when he revokes them. In other words, what he's saying to her is, I'm giving you an opportunity in advance to tell me, have you made any vows lately? And if you have, tell me what they are so that I can revoke them. In other words, that's what Rava is suggesting that Braita is telling us.
When does he have them? Later, when she's married?
No.
Oh, right now.
Now, at the moment.
Tell me right now.
Okay, you know, you got your trousseau ready, you're all ready to go marry. Tell me. Okay, it's sort of part of the marriage prep, okay, situation. Did you make any vows while you've lived under my roof? Okay, tell me what they are and I will revoke. That's what the Gemara seems to imply. Rava seems to be implying. Im came, if that's the case, says our Gemara, ki lo shama, if the father did not hear them, right? Lama li lamema, what are you trying to say? Ha-kamash malan, it comes to tell us, to teach us, orche de tsurba merabanan lahadure, that it was the common practice of scholars or students of the rabbis, and I'm going to translate the word here, lahadure, to encourage her to reveal vows so that he can revoke them. Okay? Tashma, but wait a second, says another Braita. Misefa, what about the end of our Mishnah? V'chein habal, and it says there, likewise the husband will say something to her before she enters his domain. Ad shaloti kanes lirshuto, until she enters his domain. Omerla, he says to her, hachanami. Okay, so the Gemara says, etc. In other words, think of after Omerla, think of ... Doesn't he say something similar? So the Gemara immediately jumps to an answer. Hachanami here too. The Amarla, what does he say to her? L'chi ma'ana, when I hear it. Here's the Gemara's answer is no. He also says to her before she becomes his wife, are there any vows that you've made? Okay, so that I can hear them now, and then I will revoke them.
The conditional hafara.
Right.
When I will hear it, there will be
Exactly. It's like a conditional. Very good.
Tell me right now.
Right. Tell me now. So at this point, I can.
Tell me actually, it's not like by the father who says, "Tell me now what you had." So that's how it is. He's saying that when I hear them.
In other words,
it will
he
become-
hasn't. She
After the
hasn't
Nisoni
entered his
can,
domain yet.
right? So before the Nisoni makes the conditional hafara, he says, "When I will hear them, it will be revoked." So that hafara will be called whenever he
Right.
hears. it.
There's actually Avrami is right, but I want you. If you look at the notes in Art Scroll, they will tell you that there's a Girsa problem in this particular section of the Gemara. And Ron actually brings two different explanations. One that shows that the husband's response, as Avrami just pointed out, is different than the father's. And his second is that, no, they have the same answer. Okay? So we won't go into the whole Girsa issue, but I want us to see, notice what happens. L'chi she'ema, when I will hear it. I might be better translate. And that would make it a conditional situation. Okay? But notice the Gemara isn't happy with those answers. Why? Because it comes and now brings us another Braita. Okay? If it were satisfied, it would have gone on stylistically. So Tashma, listen to the following Braita. Okay? Right. Ha'omer le'ishto, one who says to his wife, Kol nedarim shetaduri ad she'avo mimakom ploni. All those vows that you make until I come back from such and such a place, harehen kayamin lo amar klum. If they are to be confirmed, it's as if he said nothing. In other words, that conditional confirmation doesn't work, says this Bright. Harei hein mufri. They are null and void. Okay? If he says that they're null and void, that they're revoked, we have a machloket. Rabbi Eliezer Omer Mofar. According to Rabbi Eliezer, the conditional revocation is acceptable. Vaha lo shama. But wait a second, says the Gemara. How can that be the case again if he hasn't heard them? Hachanami. Here too. The Amar L'chi Shema'ana. Here too, it's when he says, when I will hear them. Okay? So the Gemara then asks, furthermore, V'lamali min hashta. So what about his implication that it seems to imply from this time on? L'chi shema, when I hear of it. Lefarla, then let it be revoked. Kasavar, dilma matridna hahishata. Maybe he was of the opinion it's possible that he will be preoccupied at that time then, and that's why he's saying it from now to the future. Okay, conditional.
You don't have to do it on the same day.
Seems not, right? Okay. Tashma. But now we've got another text. What about the following Braita? Could be another Mishnah too. Ha'omer l'apotropos, one who says to the person he made to supervise, to guarantee the welfare of his wife and family, when the administrator. Guardian, that would be a good translation too. Kol nidarim shenadart ishti. All vows that are made by my wife, mikan va'ad she'avo mimakom ploni hefer. Any vows made by my wife from now until I come back from who knows where should be revoked. But and the Mishnah, the text goes on, veheferla, and he did revoke. The administrator did revoke those vows. So the Gemara says, Yachol Yu Mufrin, is it possible that they would be revoked? Okay, Talmud Lomar. What is it teaching us then? Excuse me. Isha Yikimenu v'Isha Yiferenu. Doesn't our Torah text tell us that it says that her husband will confirm them, the husband will revoke them? Divrei Rabbi Yoshia. That's the view of Rabbi Yoshia. Amar lo Rabbi Yonatan. And Rabbi Yonatan says back to him, Matzinu b'chol haTorah kula. We have found throughout the entire Torah, shlucho shel adam k'moto, that the representative of a person acts on his behalf, which would seem to imply that the apotropos, the guardian or the administrator, does have the power to revoke such vows. What happens though, says our Gemara, Va'afilu Rabbi Yoshia lo ka'amar ela mishum de gzerat hakatuvhu. And Rabbi Yoshia only held this view because it was a clear decree of the Torah mandated text.
The husband has to make
Okay,
up for it,
that the husband has to do it for nidarim. Isha yekimenu v'isha yiferenu. Okay, that there is an exception with regards to shlucho shel adam k'moto vis-a-vis nidarim. Okay, there it must be heard by the husband. Okay, and must be revoked or confirmed by him.
Well, the husband can make him a special shliach for the neder, no?
No. Aval dekuli alma, but everybody else is in agreement. Shlucho shel adam k'moto, that the representative of a person is like him. Vaha lo shamiale. But again, we get a situation that if it's not the husband hearing him. So if the agent is able to revoke, it implies the husband would not need to hear. But we don't have a final answer till we tune in tomorrow. Okay?
I know that Haftarah Sudan and Haftarah Sudan by based in it very different. But so we are unable to specify.
Right.
Is Shemiah actually necessary? If what are we doing when we do Haftarah Sudan?
That's a good question. Maybe we will get to some point, we'll get to an answer to that. Okay, or maybe it's clearly different in terms of, since you always, because there's here remember we're talking about revoking by the husband and by the father, whereas, right, and the other is an annulment because the person is basically expressing charat. And that you're using as the petach to annul. Okay.